This is WCN, the Whole Care Network. You talk, we listen. Content presented on the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent views of the Whole Care Network. Always consult your physician for medical and fitness advice, and always consult your attorney for legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Have you ever met anybody that has caregiving on their bucket list of things to do in life?
Beyond caregiving, how do we care?
We also have to care for ourselves.
How do we treat friends, family, strangers we meet?
Forget it.
How do we heal? The physical, social, financial, spiritual.
Hello.
By creating healing ties. Tying it all together like a bow tie. With your host, Christopher McClellan, the bow tie guy.
Well, greetings, everyone. It is Christopher McClellan. You might know me as the bow tie guy for another episode of Healing Ties 2.0 featured on the Whole Care Network. Well, and today we're going big time on the Whole Care Network. We're doing a video podcast. So, if we're trying to expand, so you got to try new things. You never know what's going to happen when you have new technology, but I've got a pretty good guest today who understands technology. So if there's any faux pas or mistakes along the way in our first video podcast, we'll get through it okay. But as you know, we are in our final week of our 30 and 30 podcast as we celebrate National Family Caregivers Month and the soft launch of our new Whole Care Network website. So here's what you got to do. You have to first go to the old site, wholecarenetwork.com. You'll see the link for the new site. It's right on the front page. And then when you get to the new site, you'll get the opportunity to meet a fellow by the name of Bo. Well, as soon as you see Bo, you're going to get it because Bo ties things together on the Whole Care Network. And we're asking all of our listeners and now our viewers to, when you peruse around the new site, give us your feedback at wecare@wholecarenetwork.com and know that one of our special features in the new site is going to be the way that you'll be able to search content. And that will be through our 4 pillars of care: our physical, social, financial, and spiritual health. All of our content, our blogs, our podcasts, our videos will be categorized in one or all 4 of those categories. So we're pretty excited to get your feedback on the new site at wecare@wholecarenetwork.com. Well, enough from me. Let's move on to my guest. Matthew Estrade is gerontologist, coach, and consultant in one of my favorite cities and second home, the greater New Orleans area. He's been a caregiver support group facilitator since 2015, completing over 250 sessions for the Council on Aging in St. Tammany Parish. And Matt also facilitates a group at his parish, Mary Queen of Peace, in Manderville, Louisiana. Since 2018, Matt has published 30 episodes and continues the Peace with Dementia podcast right here on the Whole Care Network. Matt recently self-published the Peace with Dementia Rosary, Education, Intention, and Community in January of 2019. And this year in 2020, Matt debuted original daily, weekly, and monthly education on his website. And in October, he launched the Peace with Dementia Rosary podcast. Matt, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Great to be here on the first video podcast of yours.
The first video, I'm a little nervous, but I got on one of my best bow ties, and then you completed it. You got on one of your best bow ties.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, well, when I knew it was video, I knew I had to put on a bow tie. So,
well, we're trying to go big time here at the Whole Care Network, and you got to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to be able to do this with you because I just admire all the work that you've done and that you're currently doing and that you're going to do. But I know a lot about you, but fill our listeners in and our viewers in just a little bit more about your background.
Yeah. So as you mentioned in the kind introduction, I'm a gerontologist. So I have a master's in gerontology. It only took me 11 years to earn that. I started right after Katrina. We were impacted by the hurricane. Oh. And that's when I was not currently in the aging field at that time in 2005, 2006. But after that, I decided to go for it. It's something I had been thinking about for a long time. I was in the education and healthcare field already. And I just never forgot about how my mom was impacted in the late 1990s when my grandfather had some type of dementia. Still not sure what type it was. And then my mom didn't have enough support, couldn't find support groups. And that experience that she had always stuck with me and has become this vocation.
And you've really kicked it up a notch with adding a spiritual component to it, which I just really love that aspect of what you're doing. So talk about your book and your new podcast.
Yeah, so this spiritual aspect came about years ago. So I started with facilitating a support group for the Council on Aging. I continue that today, and after a few years of that, it finally hit me. People were coming in and they were talking about what church parish they went to. Most of them were Catholic parishes, but some were still Christian parishes or denominations, and they talked about how they leaned on their faith so much. And I went looking for a book, a devotional that would talk specifically about Alzheimer's and other types of dementias. And I did find a book, and I think it's a good book, but it just wasn't what I had thought it would be. It's not what I was looking for and what I thought that the people that were coming to me needed. So I sat down to pray and write this book in 2018, right after I graduated. With the master's. So I spent that next year, 2018, writing the book and then finally published it in 2019. And it's been a huge blessing for me personally. And from the feedback we're getting from other people, it's been a great blessing to others.
Isn't it a good feeling though, when you get the first copy of your book?
Yeah. When I first received a box of 25 books arrived in the mail, I couldn't wait to get home to see it delivered and open it up in front of my family, took pictures and all that. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. Unbelievable.
So when you think about your work in dementia and connecting that to the Rosary, as a Catholic myself and a former seminarian, I'm very fascinated about how you connected the spiritual aspect to this to help people heal and cope with such an insidious disease.
Yeah. So I can share two examples and even more if you're interested. So we know that the second joyful mystery is when the Virgin Mary visits her cousin Elizabeth. I take that as an opportunity to talk about how important it is that when someone is diagnosed, or even if they're not diagnosed with a memory impairment, that it's so crucial that friends and family continue to visit that person, their family. And also that that the family that's impacted, so the caregiver and the person living with dementia, invite people to come see them. If we don't do that, we stand the risk of social isolation. And when we have people coming to us, right, or us visiting people, we actually are building an emotional support network, which is very powerful. The research tells us that is protective of caregiver burden and other sorts of things that impact caregivers and persons living with dementia. So that's just one example. So the visitation in the Joyful Mysteries, and I tie that into visiting people who are living with dementia.
The emotional support, I want to kind of key on that because that is really important to help avoid isolation and to incorporate spirituality, no matter what faith base that you might be coming from. I think is an essential a component for caregivers to find that happy space in their caregiving
absolutely.
journey.
The emotions there are so many. It's a roller coaster, really, and I think you've talked about that before with other caregivers and professionals. That roller coaster of emotions when you're a caregiver, a care partner.
Well, I have to date myself with my roller coaster example because I always refer to the
Right.
old Zephyr at the Pontchartrain Beach, at the Pontchartrain Beach amusement park. And goodness, how long has that been closed now? But a long time. But the Zephyr is firmly entrenched in my memory. But one of the you've done such wonderful work with your podcast and getting the word out. But, I want to kind of go back to the olden days when I first met you, because one of I think our first contacts and conversations was about your care partner mentoring. And I'd really like you to fill our listeners and viewers in on your philosophy. And I if I remember correctly, it was 9 steps.
I do have 9 crucial tips still on my my original website. That's still up. That's peacewithdementia.com. And care partner mentoring is the name of my LLC, my business. It's what it's registered at. And I thought about, I was years and years ago, I was thinking about what am I going to call this business? And I was driving in Austin, Texas, returning home from a care partner conference that my professor, who's now at Texas State University, was presenting and had organized at the university. And the words care partner mentoring just popped into my head. Now, we had heard, care partner before, and I'll explain what that is. But care partner mentoring is important because I feel like we're on a journey, and mentors and mentees are on a journey as well. And, if I can, even though I'm not a care partner, just, being a professional in the gerontology field, if I can be a mentor to others and then connect care partners to mentor each other, I thought that would be amazing. So the whole idea, care partner, again, this is not something that I coined or that Professor Johnson coined, but the whole idea of a care partner is that it connotates a two-way relationship with someone. When you're a caregiver,
right,
you're giving care to somebody, but it doesn't really imply at all what they're doing for you. But what I found in the ideal caregiving experience, it's really a care partnership where the caregiver is providing care, but also the care recipient is able to give back in some special way, even if they can't verbalize it, even if they do have a memory impairment and can't even remember who that is. It's up for that caregiver to be open to whatever way that care recipient is going to communicate with them. And it also brings into light the idea that as caregivers, we really need to listen to communication coming from our loved one and not just say that, what we think should happen will happen.
Listening is one of the skills I think we've lost in communication over the last few years. And somebody asked me here recently, are you doing a talk show? And I said, well, I think we want to do more of a listening show because we want to listen to other people. And that's why, our motto on the Whole Care Network is you talk and we listen, because when we're able to listen to other people's stories and experiences, not only do we learn, but we build community and we build resources and validation, which is so needed for all caregivers.
Yeah, amen. When I'm facilitating a caregiver support group, if it's the way that I think it should be, well, let me say it this way: when I'm on my drive home from a support group, well, that's when they were physically in person. But after a support group, if I feel like I did less of the talking and more listening. And so just more listening. And then I guess the next thing would be facilitating and the next thing would be educating. Then I feel like I've done a good job, because really the people in the group need to talk. They need to give each other advice. They need to give each other encouragement, support. And I'm there just kind of the referee, kind of keeping everybody within the topic, or just making sure that everybody gets an opportunity to speak, that sort of thing.
Right. Because when people find that courage and they feel comfortable in speaking and talking a little bit about their experience, there is a relief. And I'm a real big proponent that advocacy does help heal heal us, especially like in my situation after caregiving has ended. So the work you're doing is just spot on target. And to be able to incorporate the spiritual element in it is just so important because, and we've had this conversation before, I feel like there's just a direct relation between caregiving and ministry. It's, caregivers are servant leaders, and they're also usually the silent leaders. And it's just an extension of what
absolutely
we're all
that's
called
the
to
word
do.
that comes up a lot. It is being a caregiver, whatever your faith, it's a ministry. It's really a service for that person.
Because that's the other interesting part about caregiving is it's indiscriminate. There's no boundaries. It impacts everybody, every faith, every gender, every orientation. There's no blockades when it comes to caregiving. Everybody has a caregiving story. And when we tell those stories, we learn just a little bit about that person. And we also recognize we're not that much different.
That's right. I wanted to share another example from the Rosary, if that's okay. Because when you look at the Rosary, you're looking at the life of Christ, which has its joyous moments, but also has its sorrowful moments. And the sorrowful moments might be my favorite from the book. And when I do my monthly interviews, suffering is a big topic, and the Catholic faith is very well situated on suffering because we look at the Passion of Jesus. And so when people say, why is this happening to me? It's not, I'm making this sound very simple. It's not, but all we have to do is point at Jesus on the cross, who suffered greatly, and he's the Son of God. So, we're going to suffer. All of us are going to suffer in this world at some point or another. And it's how do we take up that cross as someone living with dementia or someone who's a caregiver? So what the things that I try to educate people on, or at least enlighten them with some of the guests, because I have theologians come on. I don't have any clergy yet, but they're booked. They talk about looking for hope in that type of suffering, the purification, and bettering ourselves, becoming better people through the suffering that we find ourselves with on this journey. Like I said, as someone who has a memory impairment or someone who's taking care of somebody with a memory impairment.
You put it so clearly into perspective, and when we look at it in that aspect, it allows us to kind of take a step back. And I say this kind of very kindly and not being judgmental about what other people are going through, because we all suffer in our own ways as it relates to this caregiving issue. For instance, I didn't have to deal with dementia. I dealt with cancer. Two very different experiences, but I certainly understand what a dementia caregiver goes through in their peaks and valleys. And that's why it's so important to continue to share our stories and be there for each other. Well, Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot. This is a great place to take our break. And as we're doing with all of our 30 and 30 guests, as we're rebooting Healing Ties and preparation for the soft launch, well, not the soft launch, we're in the middle of the soft launch, the launch of our new Whole Care Network. We're going to take our break. When I come back, I don't want you to suffer on this, though, Matt. I want you to think about a fun fact that I may not know about you, and that I'm sure all of our listeners want to know. So put your thinking cap on.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, you're listening to Healing Ties on the Whole Care Network. We'll be right back.
Tomorrow on Healing Ties 2.0.
So I was one of those, sort of like Friday I was okay, Saturday I was a caregiver. And I think that's a very important thing to talk about, because, of course, with my type A personality and my control freak, as a control freak, I was going to do it all. I was going to do it all by myself, and I was going to fix everything right away.
Oh, so you've got one of those caregiving capes that can do everything.
Oh, yeah.
You just snap that cape, and then everything happens.
And I took that cape, and then I flew into a wall. Yeah. Hi, I'm Suzanne White, caregiver warrior, and I help caregivers care for themselves as they care for others. Please listen in to a wonderful conversation I had with Chris on Healing Ties 2.0, where we discuss everything about caregiving the best, the worst, and how to heal.
Join us tomorrow and every day in November for 30 shows in 30 days. Healing Ties 2.0. Available at thewholecarenetwork.com/healing ties and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I am continuing my wonderful and delightful conversation with my good friend, Matt Estrade from, my home away from home, New Orleans. Oh, Matt, let's just go for beignets and chicory coffee.
I'm up for it.
I mean, is Cafe Du Monde even open? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, I could put on a few more pounds just with some beignets, but...
It'd be worth it.
I've tried to soften the blow. Yeah,
It'd be worth it.
I've tried to soften the blow just a little bit for you, Matt. But now's the time you're on the spot.
Right.
We want to know that one fun fact about you that I don't know that our listeners definitely want to know.
All right. Something that I don't think that you know, and the listeners definitely do not know, is that I play the drums. So I started in late high school getting lessons on a drum set. I was never in a marching band or anything like that, but I was always hitting things, even since, I was probably 7. And so I started a band with some friends in high school, cover band. And then in most of my college years at Auburn, I was in some kind of cover band, and we'd play fraternity houses or bars. And I just love playing the drums and hitting things, and I'll do a little singing as well.
Oh, well, we might have to do a Whole Care Network karaoke night.
Maybe so, yeah.
I did not know that about you. I did not know that you had the musical inclination. You doing any of that now?
I still haven't, gosh, it's been 15 years since Katrina. I've still not really put my new drum set together. So, I haven't gotten it yet,
Mm-hmm.
but one of these days I will get a new set. I'll set up in my house and I'll be able to play. In the meantime, sometimes we'll go to a local restaurant that has an open mic night on Thursdays, and I'll jump in and play with those guys. And actually, for a while, that's kind of how I got, or discovered is the right word, but they discovered I played the drums, and they're like, "Hey, we need a drummer for the house band." So I played with them for probably 6 months before everything else in life kind of caught up. All the beautiful things, kids, wife, promoting the book, all that kind of stuff. So that just wasn't a good time, but really enjoy it and still get to play and jam every once in a while.
Well, next time we're able to travel and come to New Orleans and you set up a session, I'll be in the front row.
Awesome. All right, we'll do that.
Okay. So Matt, we just have a couple of minutes left in our debut of our Healing Ties video podcast. And of course, we've been on the Whole Care Network for a number of years, but please let our listeners know and our viewers know how they can find more information about you, how they can purchase your book. And we already know you're on the Whole Care Network, but give all your contact information out.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So the best place to find both podcasts, so the one that's on the Whole Care Network, and then the Peace with Dementia Rosary podcast, and everything else is going to be dementiarosary.com. So there you'll see the book. You'll be able to download a 23-page PDF preview of the book, better than what you'll see on any of the online retailers. And you'll be able to see the table of contents, how to use the book. You'll see the appendices. You'll see sample chapters. So that's really where I direct people to get the book. Now, you will have to pay shipping for that, but more money is able to go into the coffers of the ministry when they purchase the book, if someone chooses to buy the book at the website. And I really just want people to look at the preview and buy the book wherever they are comfortable getting it. So you'll find both podcasts there. You'll find my monthly videos there where I interview. I've talked about theologians, care partners, We'll have clergy soon. You'll find a dementia prayer wall there. So if you have a dementia related intention, I encourage you to go there and post that. You can use initials, your first name, you can use an anonymous name, but just put that there. So we have the privilege of praying for you and your family. So everything that and all and so much more you'll find over there on dementiarosary.com.
Your website is terrific, and I certainly suggest to all of our viewers and our listeners to take a view at the Dementia Rosary. And Matt, with the stories you share and the work that you do, you are certainly someone who's creating healing ties all around us. I can't thank you enough for joining me today, but most importantly, I can't thank you enough for your friendship.
Same here. Feel the same way. Thank you, Chris.
Well, that does it for our first video podcast. And goodness, I think we'll probably do a few more of these. But as you know, I'm your host, Christopher McClellan. You might know me as the Bowtie Guy. I've created a life to love after caregiving ends by sharing stories and resources and being with awesome people like Matt Estrade. Healing Ties is a part of the Whole Care Network and produced in the posh studios of Odd Box Productions in downtown St. Louis. Check out our new website and be sure to meet Bo at the new wholecarenetwork.com. And we'll see you for another episode of Healing Ties, tomorrow, as we continue our 30 podcast in 30 days, celebrating National Family Caregivers Month. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye for now.
Ciao.
This is WCN, the Whole Care Network. You talk, we listen.